Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the VP of Clinical and Commercial Partnerships at nference, Dr. Alastair Blake. How are you?
Great. Good to see you, Jared. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. Let's dive right in. Tell the audience a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm a physician turned health tech nerd. Started my career as a internal medicine physician in the UK, as you can probably tell, no prizes there. Then got interested in the healthcare space, in the health tech space, and joined nference about 3 years ago, and now lead our relationships with academic medical centers and our long-term partners.
And what was it about nference that kind of, wanted you to join the team?
It was a couple of things, really. First, I think, is the mission. We've got an audacious goal to try and leverage multimodal clinical data for the advancement of science and research in the life science space. So I think that's really attractive because ultimately that's the work that leads to care improvements and new therapeutic developments. So that was one of the first reasons. The second reason was the kind of cool tech way that we were going about that mission. So I was really attracted by the core technology, the idea of doing federation, which is such a hot topic in healthcare right now, and all the smart engineering folks that we have doing that really drove me to the team.
And for our audience that, I'm sure it's not many at this point, but for those that maybe haven't heard of nference, can you give us an overview of where the company is today?
Yeah, so we're a venture-backed scale-up company, and what we do is we're a multimodal federated data platform company. So what that means is, it's a lot of buzzwords, it means we leverage multimodal clinical data, so think EHR data, imaging data, genomics data, ECG data, that kind of, all of those different modalities of clinical data. We leverage it for life science purposes, for things like real-world evidence studies, algorithm development, which is a huge growing segment. Everyone and their mother is developing a clinical algorithm nowadays. All of those parties need to leverage clinical data. And what we saw as an opportunity is to bring together all of those modalities of data from multiple top academic medical centers, put it in a great platform that then enables these end users to do the analyses they want in a simple way.
And what has been some of the kind of feedback from these end users that are using it today?
Well, I mean, the feedback's really positive because the problem we're solving was a really pernicious one. If you were an algorithm development company or you were a pharma company that wanted to leverage clinical data, you'd typically have to go through a very painful process of going to lots of different medical centers to get IRBs in each one of those to be able to do studies. And we know that any one center doesn't typically have enough data, enough N of patients to be able to make the analyses rigorous and valid. So what we ended up doing was obviously bringing together the clinical data in a federated manner from multiple top institutions. Like we have partnerships with Mayo Clinic, Duke Health, Vanderbilt University Medical Center, Banner Health, soon to be another one that we're announcing next week, that enables these life science partners to leverage data across all these different modalities from all those top centers in a federated manner, and therefore really lowering that friction that these life science partners traditionally had with leveraging multimodal clinical data.
And a big part of your, obviously you're on the commercial and clinical side of the business. A big part of your focus are these partnerships. Can you talk about some of the recent partnerships that nference is put together? I know you also have some you can't talk about yet, but just smile if you're excited about them.
Yeah, always smiling. But yeah, they're great partnerships, and we're very privileged to have the long-term partners we do. I mean, a good one to talk about was the Mayo Clinic. We're our first partner. They're an investor in our company as well, and we're privileged to have that deep, long-standing relationship with them. I mean, ultimately, what we're doing there is we're bringing to these top academic medical centers some research infrastructure that really supports their core mission. Lots of these institutions I named, Mayo, Duke, Vanderbilt, they're all in the business of clinical care and developing great science to accelerate the mission of research. And so what we're enabling with them is building this great infrastructure for them to leverage their own data much more easily, and then also to engage with the data from their partner, their peers in the academic medical center world that ultimately is a tremendous value driver for them in their mission.
And what do you see as let's talk about some of the big in your space today, right? What are some of the biggest opportunities that are kind of in front of you that are you're really excited about? And then on the show we also like to talk about maybe some of the challenges that you also see, and challenges aren't a bad thing, right? That just they're things to overcome, but I know our audience would love to kind of hear the transparency on both sides of that.
Sure. I mean, I think the opportunity that will have the most impact for patients, which is ultimately why we do all this, is that when you have access to these data of all these modalities in an easy way, you can do so much cool algorithm development and all of these kinds of the products development on top of that data that will ultimately benefit the patients directly. If that's developing a new clinical decision support algorithm that helps doctors diagnose something earlier or make their diagnoses more accurate or faster. Ultimately, these kinds of use cases that we're seeing grow super fast at the moment are what platforms like ours enable. And I think that is such a huge opportunity for addressing things like the workforce crisis that we see in healthcare at the moment, making physicians' lives much easier and more pleasant in the workplace, and ultimately bringing better care to patients. So I think that's a really cool opportunity.
And when it comes to nference, what's really next that has you super excited about where the company is heading?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to then tie into the challenges and the next steps. I mean, one of the challenges is, building out a base of data that is representative of the population at large. You need to make sure that if you're in the business of helping support others develop algorithms for clinical care, that those algorithms are equitable and accurate across all different patient groups. And so one of the things that we've been very purposeful around in our partnerships to date is making sure that our data is representative. And we're looking forward to continuing to do that. We're thinking about partners internationally, which is probably the next step for us. And we're lucky that with our partnership with Mayo, we're now starting to support them in some of their internationalization efforts as well. So that's one of the things that I think is the exciting next horizon for us as a company.
And when it comes to those like international partnerships that you were just talking about, what really excites you about those opportunities, and maybe how do you envision them being different than the current relationships you have, or do you see them as very similar relationships, just different parts of the world?
It's a great question. I think ultimately the core value driver of why international leading medical centers would want to partner with us is part of is the same. They're all looking to accelerate their research and to do more good with their data. So I think the core fundamental value prop's the same. I think obviously the key differentiator internationally is the legal and regulatory environment is different. There are lots of different rules around GDPR for use of data in Europe, and other jurisdictions also have similar rules that are different from the US. And so all that really means is that we just have to be very careful about how we do our partnerships there, and how we work with our partners to use the data in the safest way.
Yeah, I'd also love to hear, by the way, your advice on you don't see you see a lot of physicians on the clinical side. You don't see many that also deal on the commercial side. Talk me through the opportunity for physicians to also be on the commercial side and why it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I got into the sort of commercial side of healthcare because I felt that it could be impactful and I wanted to learn a new skill set, right? And I think if you're someone like me who's always motivated by learning, and I think lots of physicians often are, there is an opportunity for you to go beyond just, okay, clinical practice and then maybe clinical advisorship roles in health tech startups, is to just, really find a way to try and learn the toolkit of the commercial side of the business. And there really is, I think physicians will find that there is pull from the business side if they show willing to learn those skills and get that skill set. So I think, there are lots of opportunities out there. Physicians should definitely do it. It expands your portfolio. It's really stimulating. It's really interesting. I think it can be super impactful as well. It's a bit of kind of just show willing and try not to get yourself pigeonholed in, clinicians in health tech companies play this kind of role, like a pretty narrow role. I think there's definitely scope to do more. Physicians are smart folks. They can learn new skills.
Well, I want to thank you so much for you just, by the way, succeed. These are my favorite types of episodes. You answer every question quickly. We fly through a lot of different questions. Audience gets to know you. We get to learn more about the company, and we get to hear about these challenges and opportunities. So I can't wait to have you come back on again, and we can dig even deeper. But for your first episode in the Slice of Healthcare Network, super excited that we were able to do this.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.